Hi everyone, welcome to my channel A Step Towards Study. So today we are going to start with our basic chapter of NCERT, class 6, chapter 1 of history. So we will try to understand in a very simple language. So the first thing is chapter 1 is what, where, how and when. So Rashida, as we can see a picture here, Rashida is a girl who started reading a newspaper. When we read a newspaper, we try to link between the past, the future. So suddenly her eyes fell on a small headline and it was saying 100 years ago. So she started to wonder, like, is there any method to know what had happened so many years ago? So what she did is she started to find out what happened. So yesterday you could listen to the radio, watch television, read a newspaper. Last year, ask somebody who remembers. Like we can say that if we talk about yesterday, like if I am sitting here now and I would just think like what happened yesterday. So what happened is yesterday I may be listening to the radio, I may be watching television, I may be reading a newspaper. So we can understand like yes, we have some knowledge of our past, right? And if you think about last year, suppose last year, if you want to think that last year what I did, then last year if I don't remember also, I can ask somebody who remembers that. I can ask my father, I can ask my mother on this day what happened. Like we all remember our birthdays. Last year on this day I celebrated my birthday at a very grand way. We just think like that. Or on this day somebody I got my result, I had got a straight 90%. So we remember what happened last year. But thing is, what about long ago? So we can say, let us see how it can be done. So long ago, how to find out how what we can know about the past. So as we say, past is the link to the future, we can say that. So what can we know about the past? There are several things we can find out: what people ate, the kinds of clothes they wore, the houses in which they lived. We can find about the lives of hunters or herders, farmers, rulers, merchants, priests, craftspersons, artists, musicians and scientists. We can also find out about the games the children played, the stories they heard, the plays they saw, the songs they sang. So we can see is that if we come to know what happened in the past, we can find what our ancestors, our grandfather, our great grandfather, what kind of life they were living, what kind of houses they were living. We can say now that our forefathers, like my grandfather, used to live in a hut house made up of mud or something. So these similar things, if you want to know, like what when humans were not developed, like our primitive age, like the apes, we can say consider apes. So how they were hunting, how they were searching for the foods, were they killing animals or were they eating only the plants? That kind of life they were living. Were they doing any farming work, were they doing any temple rituals, were they musicians, were there any scientists? We can know about our forefathers when we know about the past. If we know about the past, so I can say one thing: if we know that what our forefathers faced issue, that thing we can resolve in our life to make it a great future of ours, so that we do not face the same problems. Then comes, where do people live? We can find the Narmada river map. One, it is given, we can find there. Let us go to that page. So map 1. So here we can see the Ganga river, the Narmada river. So these are the rivers, these are the banks where the life started. Like we can say the Indus Valley civilization started in the river banks. Because why it started in the river banks? We can say like in the river banks The soil were very fertile. The people who lived in the banks, they can easily grow the vegetables, they can easily grow the crops, and they can easily hunt for fish, wild animals, deer. They all live on the banks of the river because soil is fertile, water is plentifully available, food abundance is there, abundance of food is there. So we can say people have lived along the banks of these rivers for several 100,000 years. Some of the earliest people who lived here were skilled gatherers, that is, people who gathered their food. They knew about the vast wealth of plants in the surroundings, forests and collected roots, fruits and other forests produced for the food. They also hunted the animals. So when the people were living on the banks of the river, obviously animals will be coming to drink water or something. They would be killing those animals and they would be having as a food. Now we can see the Suleiman and the Kirtar hills to the northwest, some of the areas where women and men first began to grow crops such as wheat and barley about 8,000 years ago are located here in the Narmada Valley. People also began rearing animals like sheep, goat, cattle and lived in villages. Locate the Garo hills to the northeast and the Vindhyas in the central India. So those things we can see in the map. So those are some of the other areas where agriculture developed. So the places where rice was first grown are to the north of Vindhyas. So we can see the different rivers in the map here. We can see the Ganga river here, the Yamuna river here, the Mahanadi of Odisha developed here. I mean developed from Chhattisgarh. It is flowing here. Then we can see the Narmada here. And these are the Gangetic plain where we can say the people, the Indus Valley civilization, the people where the life started. And we can see the Garo hills, the Brahmaputra river, the Himalayas. These are the places where the actual life evolved. It is mentioned here, trace the river Indus and its tributaries. Tributaries are smaller rivers that flow into a larger river. So I can say you of Indus river, if you can see here in the map, we can see that this one is the Indus river. And tributaries are actually the small rivers which join the main river. We can see the Jhelum, the Chenab, the Ravi, Satluj, Beas. They all are joining the Indus river. So those are the tributaries of the Indus river. Like two types of tributaries are there, which I will not go into detail. That is the left bank tributary and the right bank tributary. So we don't require it now. We will keep our knowledge short. Let's focus because we are only in class 6 now. Why to go so ahead? So we can say about 4,700 years ago, some of the earliest cities flourished on the banks of these rivers. Obviously, as I said, Indus Valley civilization, the Harappan civilization started in the banks of Ganga river. So later, about 2,500 years ago, cities developed on the banks of the Ganga and its tributaries and along the sea coast. The same thing as I already told. Now we can locate the Ganga and its tributary called the Son river. So in the map here, we can locate, here is the Ganga river and here is the Son river. Son river is the tributary of the Ganga river, which is it is joining to the main Ganga river. Even Yamuna is also a tributary. Okay, in ancient times, the area along these rivers to the south of Ganga was known as Magadha, now lying to the state of Bihar. Actually, during the ancient times, there are many different kingdoms, small kingdoms. That was not an India at all. There were very small kingdoms like Magadha, the Vatsa, variety of kingdoms were there. 16 Mahajana Padas were there, and one of them was Magadha, which was highly flourished. Like it was the only kingdom which sustained because it was lying to the it developed in the banks of Ganga, which had a plain which was very rich because agriculture was flourishing, animals were easily found, food abundance was there, as I said. So Magadha was a very powerful kingdom at that time, and it is now lying in the state of Bihar. Its rulers were very powerful and set up a large kingdom. Kingdoms were set up in other parts of the country as well. Throughout, the people traveled from one part of the subcontinent to another. The hills and the high mountains, including the Himalayas, the desert, rivers, and seas, made journeys dangerous at times, of course. So, because at that time we had not developed our mode of communication as we have now, we have buses, we have trains, we have cars, we have airplanes. But that time, uh, the the communication was not at all easier. The route was not at all developed. We don't have proper roads. So the hills, the people used to travel passing through the hills, through the Himalayas, through the deserts, through the rivers and seas. So obviously it was dangerous. So men and women moved in search of livelihood, also to escape from natural disasters like floods and droughts. There were, as rivers were there, floods and droughts are obvious common things. Sometimes men marched in armies conquering other lands. Besides, merchants traveled with caravans or ships carrying valuable goods from one place to another. We can see that in our ancient world also trade was happening. We already know, though money was not a medium of exchange, barter system was existing. So we can see merchants traveled with caravans, seas carrying valuable goods from place to place. Religious teachers worked from village to village, town to town, stopping to offer instruction. Obviously, we know people. As someone used to preach, like someone used to sit under a tree and followers were there. They were talked about our religion, our religious beliefs. So finally, some people perhaps travel driven by a spirit of adventure, wanting to discover new and exciting places. All this led to the sharing of ideas between people. Why do people travel nowadays? So we can now say why we travel now. We travel now. There must be some reason. As people were traveling in back in like olden days, they were traveling. They were traveling why? They were traveling in search of food. They were traveling in search of to exchange our products. They were traveling to preach. So now why were traveling? Hills, mountains, and seas form the natural frontiers of the subcontinent. While it was difficult to cross these frontiers, those who wanted could and did scale the mountains and cross the seas. People from across the frontiers also came into the subcontinent and settled here. These movements of people embrace our cultural traditions. People have shared new ways of carving stone, composing music, and even cooking food. We already know that our ancestors rubbed two stones to start the fire. They they discovered variety of stones. They discovered music. They even cooked food, because earlier our primitive fathers, they first they used hunting as the process of food gathering. Then when they discovered fire, they started cooking food. Now, names of the lands. Two of the words we often use for a country are India and Bharat. The word India comes from the Indus. We saw the Indus river. From there only India word has been driven. That Indus was called Sindhu in Sanskrit. Fine. Okay. The Iranians and the Greeks who came throughout the northwest about 2500 years ago were familiar with the Indus, called it Hindus or the Indus. The land to the east of the river was called India. The name Bharata was used for a group of people who lived in the northwest and who are mentioned in the Rig Veda. Now let me tell you one thing. Our India has a name: India, Bharat, Sindhu, Hindu. Actually, do you know one thing? Hindu is not a caste. It is not a caste. People who live in India are called Hindus or Indus. We are just misinterpreting the name. The name Bharata was used for a group of people who lived in the northwest. Northwest means which regions? Assam, Meghalaya, Sikkim. Those are the northwest. Northwest region is the Punjab region, the Rajasthan region. They were mentioned as Bharata in the Rig Veda, the earliest composition in Sanskrit. And what was it said? Around 3500 years ago. Okay, let's keep our lecture short. For chapter 1, I'll bring another session, part 2, and we will start from finding out about the past. Thank you guys. Do like and subscribe my channel, and if you have any comments, Please let me know in the comment section. I will try to improve my lecture. I'll try to reply you. Thank you. Thank you everyone.